Welcome to First Garden, New Gardener. I'm Joy Barrett. One of the enemies of the garden are weeds, and we fight weeds all throughout the year, and there's many different ways in which we can combat, reduce, and sometimes eliminate weeds or weeding altogether. Well, if you have raised beds like we do, you're going to eliminate a majority of the weeds. There are some still weeds that will come up through the compost, through the raised beds, just because of natural, blowing from the wind, birds drop them, that type of thing. Now, you can also use a weed barrier or weed cloth based on how you feel about that. That can reduce the amount of moisture getting into the soil as well. In a second application, if you would run a drip line underneath that weed cloth or weed barrier, that is one of the more perfect scenarios. But maybe you don't have the finances or the time or the availability or the mobility in order to do such. You have to resort to the manual removal of weeds like we have in this bed of yacons. We intermingled or intercropped some kale, which we thought was kohlrabi, and it is growing here. Now, we've had a tremendous amount of rain, and that's the time in which you want to weed your garden, right after a rain. And even in this application, these weeds here are getting far too tall. They should have been harvested or removed when they were 2 or 3 inches. You can come in with a hoe and just knock them down that way. The best way is to physically remove them out of the ground, roots and all. And because it's wet, I'm able to do that. Now, this weed here has not gone to seed, and that's what we want to prevent. Weeds going to seed and reseeding themselves, and then we continue that evil cycle over and over again. So we can use weeds in order to help us weed our patch. So on a weed like this, very tall, we can just throw it back down on the areas between our plants here. So let's get in here, shake the dirt off. We can just throw it. And what it is accomplishing is, just lay it there, is it's protecting. It's actually utilized, it's a mulch. We're mulching with the weeds in which we are removing, and they will break down, and in the process of breaking down they will begin to smother out the weeds in which are trying to come up. Now, if you can keep ahead of this early on in the season, it's not nearly as difficult, but also because we've had the rain, it's much easier to remove. And we want to remove the weeds because they compete with the nutrients and the plants that we're growing. And 99% of the plants that you're growing in your garden, the weeds are going to outcompete because the weeds have been over time conditioned in order to survive in the much worse conditions than your more delicate vegetables and fruits. I'm Joy Barrett. Thanks for watching. This has been First Garden, New Gardener. And as always, remember to rate, subscribe, and comment.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.